Welcome to the PhD Mommy's Journey podcast with Bridgette Ojo,
an educator and scientific researcher who also happens to be your number one fan. This podcast is for millennial mommypreneurs who strive to be the best versions of themselves every single day. If you're a millennial mom interested in learning more about mindset, motherhood, and motivation, then this is the podcast for you.
Welcome back to the PhD Mommy's Journey, the podcast where personal power meets purpose. I'm your host, Bridgette Ojo, and if you're here today, it's because you've made a decision. The decision is you want more, you're ready to evolve, you're not here to play small. So on today's episode, we're talking about a rule that has been a cornerstone in how I live, how I lead, and most importantly, how I fight. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. And let me tell y'all, it's not just a mindset, it's a lifestyle. Most importantly, it's also a warning. Stay focused on your lane because distraction is the fastest way to forfeit your greatness. Let's get into it. There's something magical that happens when you decide to get just 1% better every day. And I'm telling you this because I've lived it. But here's the truth. You don't become her overnight. You become her daily. You become her in 1% decisions. You build her in early mornings, late nights, quiet disciplines, those moments where no one's really clapping for you. I didn't wake up one day as a sailor, PhD candidate, fit mom of two, or empowered woman. Instead, I built her. I built her through the small, gritty, and sometimes ugly incremental changes. By adopting this 1% mindset, it's helped me to lose over 140 pounds, graduate Navy boot camp, stay consistent in my PhD program, raise two amazing daughters with vision, and keep building even when I was exhausted and I felt underestimated. But I'm going to keep it real with you ladies. When I first started my weight loss journey, I could barely run a quarter mile. I was winded. I was embarrassed. However, I made a decision. I'm going to show up, I'm not going to quit, and I will outlast the old version of me. And boy, did I do that. By the time I got to boot camp, I didn't stop once. Now I can actually run for miles. And though this may not seem like a lot to some, for me, it was everything. I earned that. And if I could go from barely running to owning the treadmill, so can you. There were so many times where I wanted to give up. However, I reminded myself, you're not competing with them, you're competing with who you were yesterday. And guess what? If you want to win that battle, you've got to embrace failure like it's part of your training. Because guess what? It is. So here's the reality. You will fail, you will fall short, you will mess it up. Here's the truth. Failure is not the enemy. It's part of the playbook. Failure is a gift. Think of it like data. It shows you where to pivot, not where to quit. Every time I hit a wall, I go inward and I ask myself, what's the feedback here? What truth am I avoiding? What adjustment am I resisting? Because the ones who win aren't the ones who are the most talented. They're the most relentless. But before you become relentless, you've got to face the loudest voice in your head, aka your inner critic. Life is like chess. You make a move, You analyze that move and you adjust when necessary. You're constantly inspecting your position, learning from each mistake. The ones who win aren't the ones who avoid failure. They study it. They use failure to grow. Whenever something doesn't go my way now, I don't spiral out of control. I don't act like the world is ending. Instead, I simply extract the data. I look at, where did I misstep? What pattern showed up? What needs to be a little bit more aligned, or what needs tightening? But here's the truth. You are never truly failing if you are learning. And in this game of life, your strategy matters way more than simply just your speed. Now let's talk about it. That voice in your head, you know which one I'm talking about. The one who nitpicks, overanalyzes, and doubts everything. She's loud, but she's not your boss. She's your internal auditor. Now, that voice can either destroy you or it can sharpen you. And how you respond will determine who you become. But here's a mind shift. What if you looked at your inner critic simply as an auditor instead of your enemy? Think about this. Whenever a house is getting inspected, it's not personal. It's simply identifying weak spots so they can be fixed. Your inner critic works the same way. She's like Jocko Willink inspecting the unit. She's looking for flaws so you can just simply improve. Instead of shutting her down, canceling her, ask her, is this fear or feedback? Is this pain or precision? Don't ignore her. Listen, extract, execute. You run the team. She's just the analyst. Now, once you take back that power, it's time to ask the question most people run from. What do you actually want? Let's be clear. If your goals don't scare you or stretch you, you're not dreaming, you're simply stalling. I'll be real with you. There was a long stretch in my life when I didn't even know what I wanted. I was performing, achieving, staying busy, but I wasn't aligned. In his book, Peterson says we become tyrants to ourselves when we expect so much, but give ourselves no clarity. So I had to get still. I had to get honest with myself. I wanted strength. I wanted peace. I wanted to live in alignment, not hustle for simple approval. And once I got clear on what I really wanted, I was able to stop chasing everyone else's path and finally start building my own. And that's where something deeper happened. Because clarity began to open the door to something I never expected. Vision. Clarity is currency. I'm going to say that again. Clarity is currency. And when I got clear, I stopped playing in puddles and I started swimming in depth. Then I also discovered something else. Most people, we're not aiming wrong. We're just aiming too low. In the chapter, Peterson talks about Maya. And Maya is a concept that is based on ancient Hinduism. And it's based on this idea of illusion. So in other words, Peterson describes how we can get so focused on what we think we want that we actually miss out on what we truly need. If you think about it, when we chase desires we think we need, we focus on their appearance, we focus on validation, we focus on the applause of everything. We become so distracted by other people's lives that we stop paying attention to our own. Now, when I read this in the chapter, this one really hit me kind of hard because I started to realize that I was chasing all the shiny things. I was chasing titles, I was chasing validation, I was chasing recognition, all while ignoring the version of me that was screaming for true alignment. So what I did was I stopped looking at other people's timelines on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. I stopped comparing my growth to someone else's highlight reel. And I began to turn my attention inward. When I stopped aiming at what looked good and started aiming at what felt right, everything began to shift for me. That's when I realized maybe I wasn't aiming wrong. Maybe I was just aiming too low. And that shift helped to change everything in my life. Because once you start to aim higher, once you step into a more refined version of your desire, life is going to start testing you. But hey, it's not a bad thing. It's actually the beginning of purpose. So once that purpose becomes more refined in your life, Peterson gently reminds us that our desires will start to come in conflict. They'll be in conflict with other people, it becomes in conflict with society, and most importantly, our past patterns. Here's the reality. Your desires will conflict with the world. Your desires probably will conflict with your family, your timeline, your comfort zone. But that's how they become more refined. Your refined desires become stronger, sharper, and more sustainable. That's when we shift from desires to actual true purpose, not just some wishful thinking. This is when your purpose starts to serve more than just you. Your purpose begins to survive failure. Your purpose begins to lead to legacy. Your goals mature in the tension. They evolve under pressure. And once that purpose gets solid, you need a framework to hold it. That's when we shift from desire and purpose and we turn it into discipline. Let's talk about structure. One of the biggest breakthroughs that I've had in this past year is Jocko Willink's quote, "Discipline equals freedom." Here's the reality about that. Discipline gives you freedom, and structure gives your goals a place to land. In the chapter, Peterson says, what's the point of aiming if you don't have a playbook? You can't just aim without rules. You can't just dream without a playbook. He further goes on to say that even our tools, our thoughts, our gifts, our ambition, they need to be aimed toward something. So now I ask myself, what systems support the life I want? What routines bring me closer to my peace? What structure protects my growth? This part, it's not going to be glamorous. It's actually going to be very monotonous. It's going to be very boring. And it's going to be very, very lame. But it's necessary. And speaking of necessary, there is this one shift I made that unlocked everything for me. Choosing real self-love over superficial success. You can't pursue meaningful goals without structure. Even if you're the most talented person, your talents need purpose. Your motivation needs rules. Discipline gave me my freedom. It helped me to focus when life got really loud. It helped to get me out of spirals and into strategy. So now I'm going to turn it back onto you. I want you to ask yourself, what's your rule book? What systems do you need to stay aligned? What's the structure that's going to keep you moving forward? Because when your goals have structure, they actually become possible. For a long time, I was just chasing appearance. The polished teacher life, the safe, familiar path, the job that made sense to everyone else. But I felt empty. Leaving teaching wasn't a career move. It was a decision to find purpose over performance. When I decided to join the Navy really challenged me mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And in that challenge, I found confidence, I found discipline, self-respect, and a whole new reason to fight for the woman I'm becoming. I know a lot of people talk about self-love. Self-love, it's not bubble baths, it's not getting your hair, nails, makeup done every Sunday, Saturday. Those things are great. True self-love is sacrifice, responsibility, rising. So here's your challenge. For 7 days, you're going to do something known as a 7-day progress audit. And every night, I want you to ask yourself. So for 1 week, each night, you're going to ask yourself, where was I 1% better than yesterday? What failure taught me something? What did my inner critic try to say? And what was the truth behind it? Am I acting in alignment with what I actually want? Am I aiming high or just settling low? I want you to write it down, sit with it, because this is your playbook. Peterson says that when we take responsibility for becoming better, not for ego, not for status, but for something higher, new possibilities emerge. When we choose discipline and contribution over chaos, when we take action, even in the smallest places, we start to change things. Not just for ourselves, but for our families, for our kids, even for people we don't like, for the world. We begin true legacy building. And yes, it's risky, but guess what? It's also very hopeful. Do you want to kill nihilism? Do the hard thing anyway. Send the email, clean your room, make your bed, have that hard conversation, write that paper, put the shoes on, try again. Ask yourself, what's bothering me? Can I fix it? Am I willing to fix it? Even if it's small, especially even if it's small, celebrate it because you are building momentum. You're saying, I believe my life can get better. Not perfect, not easy, but better. This isn't about being a control freak. This is about becoming so aligned with your higher self that you stop chasing chaos. It's about recognizing the difference between good and evil. It's about sacrificing what needs to go. It's about aiming at what's worthy. That 1% daily improvement, that's your offering. It's your contribution. It's your aim. It's how you find hope again. More importantly, it's how you compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. And that's how you change your life. This concludes today's episode of the PhD Mommy's Journey. I'm Bridgette Ojo, your favorite sailor, scholar, PhD mom, and confidant in this beautiful, messy, meaningful work of self-becoming. If you have Instagram, don't forget to follow me at the PhD Mommy Life. and tag me with your 7-day audit reflections. Until next time, stay grounded, stay hopeful, stay beautiful, and always remember, you're not behind, you're building.